Applying for U.S. citizenship in 2025, here is what you need to know. USCIS, that's U.S. Immigration, just released a new memorandum addressing how they're going to be examining people who apply for citizenship pertaining to good moral character. All right. Good moral character, that's something you have to establish when you're applying for citizenship. You're a person who basically is worthy of it. Now there's a new heightened requirement. All right. In this video, I'm going to cover all the new requirements that U.S. immigration officers, USCIS officers are going to be looking at when they're going through your file for U.S. citizenship. All right. Really quickly, before, prior to this year, when I used to have my clients apply for citizenship, I tell them, hey, just got no criminal history, no serious issues. You paid your taxes or you're on a payment plan. You're good. But now the government's saying they're placing a greater emphasis on immigrants' positive attributions and contributions in good moral character determinations. These positive factors are, including but not limited to sustained community involvement and contributions in the USA, educational attainment, stable and lawful employment, length of lawful permanent residence in the United States, meaning they're going to consider people who have been here much, much longer than just the baseline, 5-year or 3-year basis, and compliance with tax obligations and financial responsibility. All right. So now you have to show more. You have to show that you are worthy of it. Okay. This is a little precarious because a lot more people are going to get disqualified. If you've got a criminal history, you've done things basically that are negative. Now they could use the negative to say, well, you know what? You haven't really shown more positive. Before, if you did something negative, it was closed, it was resolved. It could be enough to get you citizenship to show it was the past and it's over, even if you did nothing positive. But now they're going to look at a heightened requirement, and they're going to show if you've rehabilitated and reformed yourself, if you've done something wrong. So, for example, you owe child support. They're going to say, have you rectified overdue child support or other family obligations? We're talking about alimony, spousal support, compliance with probation and conditions. So, let's say you were on some sort of parole and so forth, compliance with that. Community testimony from credible sources attesting to good moral character. You've got a priest, you've got a rabbi, you've got a minister to attest to all those positive things. Reformation or mentoring those with similar past. Also, really important, guys, this is something critical. If you're not paying your taxes, you fell behind, you have late, filings or penalties, or you owe taxes, they could use that against you and require full payment of overdue taxes. So the requirements just got a lot higher for many, many people, for those with criminal histories or other tax obligations.
U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services is reinstating neighborhood checks to vet immigrants applying for U.S. citizenship. The checks involve interviews with neighbors and coworkers to determine if the applicant is showing good moral character, as well as adhering to the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. government hasn't enforced neighborhood checks since the 1990s, but instead relied on the FBI to conduct background checks.
Welcome back to Find the Dots. In 2005, U.S. citizenship remained one of the most significant milestones for immigrants, and the USCIS interview continued to be a fatal part of that journey. It's a process that requires preparation, patience, and now, more than ever, good conduct. Today, let's explore what this means for those seeking American dream. Stay tuned. I'll be back to give you more documentary.
USCIS is now sending people to immigration court when their application is denied.
In other words, your USCIS interview could decide whether you move forward with your case or whether you end up in deportation proceedings.
So you should be super organized and bring certified documents. Have physical proof such as bank accounts and bank statements that show proof of life in the U.S. And also know the difference between authorized stay and legal status. Even a pending adjustment doesn't guarantee a lawful status.
That's right. And finally, don't go by yourself. Always have an attorney with you at your USCIS interviews. So after these interviews, what can people expect? What happens next?
So if USCIS approves your petition, that's great. If you're denied, unfortunately, you'll be issued an NTA, so that triggers an immigration court under removal proceedings. This is a huge deal. You need to contact an immigration attorney.
The U.S. government is starting neighborhood checks for people who are applying for citizenship, bringing back something that they haven't done in over 30 years. This means immigration officials could come knocking on your door, asking about your neighbor. And here's what you need to know. The Trump administration is going to be sending officers into communities in order to investigate applicants for citizenship. That could include interviewing neighbors, coworkers, or even employers in order to see if an applicant for citizenship is somebody who is a person of good moral character and supportive of U.S. values. Now, this process is part of U.S. immigration law, but it's a practice that has essentially been waived since the 1990s. For decades, FBI background checks have been enough for screening purposes. But now the government is bringing it back in order to tighten the legal immigration system. Now, for people seeking citizenship, this adds another layer of scrutiny. To even qualify, applicants have to have had a green card for 5 years, prove on their own that they're a person of good moral character, pass English and civics tests, and avoid serious criminal history or immigration violations. But now this policy says that they should submit letters of recommendation from their neighbors and people who know them proactively, or risk officers showing up at their homes, neighborhoods, and workplaces. USCIS said that failing to provide this information could impact their qualifications for naturalization. So here's where you come in. If USCIS comes knocking on your door, you might be asked questions about your neighbor or coworker who's applying for citizenship. If you know that person, you can be helpful and supportive by saying that they're a responsible and good person. If you're close, you can even offer to the officer that you'd be willing to write a statement on support of that person. That can prevent an even more stressful investigation. It's also important to stay calm if you're ever approached by an officer for this reason. Certainly what they're doing is legal as it is part of U.S. immigration law, but it can be intimidating. So sharing supportive and accurate information is important, and it can make a huge difference for someone's future. So remember, this policy isn't just about immigrants. It affects entire communities, and your words can help decide whether or not someone could become a U.S. citizen. Feel free to share this so more people know about it, and follow us for more immigration news and information.
Massive changes to filing procedures with immigration were announced today. As of October 28, 2025, you're no longer going to be able to use physical checks to file cases with immigration. Only this form to use wire, SCH, or credit cards will be allowed. What that means is that many people that don't have access to wiring facilities or have any credit cards will not be able to use the system or file immigration cases. Also, if you don't have sufficient funds in your bank account, even if you do a wire like that, it could delay your case even further. The biggest problem with this change is that until now, if you use a physical check, once immigration cash your check, you can flip a copy of the check in the back and you can get a case number weeks before they issue your receipt. With this change, this is no longer going to be possible. So hurry up, file your cases before October 28, 2025 using physical checks. Get confirmation this way. But after that, only SCA or credit card. And follow me for daily updates.
Discussing on U.S. citizenship in 2005, the USCIS interview, I want to speak directly to our immigrant brothers and sisters who are still working towards their full documentation. Your journey is full with challenges, but also with opportunity to demonstrate resilience, commitment, readiness to be part of a community built on shared values. One important point to highlight is the good conduct is now a major requirement in the racialization process. Immigration officers look closely at an applicant's history, not only their paperwork and knowledge, but also their personal behavior. This means avoiding criminal activities, respecting the law, showing that you are building a responsible life in your community. For many, this requirement is not just about passing an interview. It's about living a way that reflects the value of citizenship every day. Here are a few key pieces of advice for those still on this path. 1. Stay updated. Immigration rules change, so always check official USCIS sources instead of relying on rumors. Accurate information is the best tool. Number 2. Organize your records. Keep documents like work history, tax return, and identification in order. A clear record shows responsibility and readiness. Number 3, prepare early. Study the civic and English tests well ahead of time. Even practice a few minutes daily builds confidence and help you to shine at your interview. Seek trusted help. Many communities offer free and low-cost legal support. Use these resources to avoid mistakes and stay protected. 5. Live responsibly. Remember, your conduct matters. Paying tax, obeying law, contributing positive to your community all counts towards building a strong case for citizenship. To our Find the Dot fans, today's conversation is more than policy. It's about people. Each immigrant striving for citizenship is carrying hope not for themselves, but also for their family and future generation. And before we end, I want to extend greeting and appreciation to the originator and the stitches of this video that brought this important story to light. Your work helps us connect the dots and create space for meaningful discussion like this. So, as you reflect on today's commentary, remember, citizenship is earned not only through paperwork but through patience, preparation, good conduct. To those on this journey, keep going, your story matters. Thanks for joining us here on Find the Dot. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep the conversation alive. Thanks.